has been identified and witnessed by numerous people. And I know, because I've seen the files, it has also been seen on multiple occasions by people in our Defence Department. And some of those sightings reports are in our National Archives.
Every night, when the sun finally does set on Exmouth, it becomes one of the darkest places on Earth. But that darkness was punctured one night in February 2015 by a strange blinding light off the highway, which made young driver Nikolai Gordovich rethink everything.
It was very early in the morning. No one else was on the road. I was completely by myself. And I saw this light on top of a hill. It was pure, bright, white light. The only thing I could think of like that was if it was to do with the military. I have absolute clarity of that memory.
Forgive me, why didn't you stop?
I think something was just telling me just to keep going. And no, Exmouth is a place where it seems to occur.
When I was doing my preliminary research, when I went up there the first time, I had people walk up to me at the table when I was having dinner one night. They said, "Are you that journo that's investigating the flying saucers?" And I went, "Well, not quite, but I'm looking at the phenomenon." He went, "Well, good, because we've all seen it."
Adrian Arnold is another Exmouth eyewitness.
Adrian, at long last, good to finally meet you.
Hi Ross, good to meet you
Good to
finally
meet
too.
you.
It was 1973 when he was 12 and watching a movie with friends at the local drive-in.
Between a break in the film, I just looked up, and when I looked up, I saw 3 dots that were sort of moving in odd patterns. They moved directly one direction very quickly, and then paused, and then moved in another direction.
Couldn't it have been a plane? A helicopter?
Not likely, not where this was. Planes can't fly like that. There was no way a helicopter could move at the speed that these 3 dots left.
So they're in the shape of a triangle?
In a triangle. And at times when they moved, the triangle distorted and changed shape, but it returned back to the flat.
It was almost like a 3-dimensional triangle, a diamond. Like the top of it was 3-dimensional, but no windows, just seemed to be a solid metal object.
Annie's sighting was in 1991, but her recollection of what she saw is as clear as if it were yesterday.
That's very interesting. We don't have many lateral views of them, though. The majority that I have are when they're over the witness or relatively high in the sky. It's not often we're afforded a view like this.
It literally came and hovered next to the car as it was driving along at 100 kilometres an hour.
So we're talking just a matter of feet above the ground?
Amazing.
That's interesting. One thing I will tell you, talking about close proximity to the Earth with many of these reports, I don't have one account of a triangle landing.
We are still transmitting on behalf of the Americans from Northwest Cape, and what happens there is cloaked in secrecy. When we tried to go there and film around the base, the Defence Department kicked us off.
Channel 7 is out the back taking photos of possibly field, and it's going to get lots of people's attention, and it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. I would prefer you left.
They told us that we weren't allowed to film certain aspects of the base. It remains highly confidential to this day. In fact, I think we had to pull back to a hill which was about 10 kilometres distant. Is there a link between nuclear weapons, do you think, and these craft?
Yes, there seems to be a strong correlation between nuclear weapons, nuclear storage sites, and UFOs.
No question they are focused on our nuclear weapons.
And you believe they're trying to send a message?
I do. I think the message is get rid of your nuclear weapons.
A world away from Western Australia, in the foothills of Southern California, retired US Air Force weapons operator Robert Salas is keeping a close eye on reports of craft appearing in the skies over nuclear installations like Exmouth.
In the 1960s, when he was the commander of an ICBM nuclear missile launch facility, he had the ability to independently launch nuclear missiles on America's enemies. Bob was literally the guy who pulled the trigger. But he realized that somebody else was playing a game with him, and it wasn't the Russians.
In 1967, with the US and the USSR engaged in the Cold War insanity of mutually assured destruction, the then 27-year-old was in charge of launching nuclear warheads from Montana.
If given the order, I would launch those missiles. Essentially, we're talking about the end of civilization as we know it.
It was an order he hoped he'd never receive. And on March 24, 1967, he was underground in the weapons silo, sitting by a phone he hoped would never ring. But it did. On the line was a guard up top telling Salas he'd seen a menacing light in the airspace above the atomic warheads they were in charge of.
Screaming into the phone. He's very frightened, extremely frightened. He's babbling, shouting. I finally calm him down, and he says there's a orange-red light, large light, hovering above the front gate. And it's a pulsating light. He got all the guards out there with their weapons, and he wanted me to tell them what to do. It was, of course, crossing my mind that we were under some sort of an attack. And all of a sudden we get bells and whistles going off, claxons, really, loud horns. And that happens when a missile goes down for any reason.
Simultaneously or one by one?
One by one, across the board. Boom, 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 boom. Something shut down the system.
With the arsenal rendered inoperable, Salas ordered the guards back underground.
What did they say they saw?
They saw UFOs. They saw these lights hovering above the facility.
You're freaking me out, Bob. I mean, this is scary.
The point is, these objects knew and know exactly how our systems work. And they are able to interfere at any point.
So you're describing clearly a non-human intelligence, vastly superior technology,
Yes.
interfering with the most powerful weapons at our disposal.
That's what I'm describing. Yes.
You think it was alien?
I think it was off Earth, yes. Or alien.
Technology was far outreach anything that we had. What we saw was not of this world.
Of course, there may be another plausible explanation for these sightings. That what people like Annie saw was not out of this world, but of this world. In other words, secret US military technology no one was meant to see.
I just want to show you something.
Remember, 1991 was around the beginning of America's stealth program.
Have a look at that.
That looks exactly like what we saw, except the top of it was cut, like had more cuts in a three-dimensional shape. Yeah, and that makes me feel extremely anxious because that's what we saw, except the tail bit was cut off the end there.
The really interesting thing about this is that this is stealth craft called the Hopeless Diamond.
So you're saying that this could have been the Americans doing?
Well, if it is human constructed, it suggests that maybe the Americans were testing some kind of advanced technology over Exmouth.
I feel like I'm panicking. I feel angry. If that's the truth, then why would they have buzzed and followed that car? Knowing damn well that we could see that and then try to shut us up. That makes, for me, absolutely no sense, and it is infuriating.
Why is it infuriating?
Because, I mean, realistically, it's done a lot for my life for many years, and like the fact here that I don't even want to be identified.
You're worried about being ridiculed.
Oh, absolutely. So if this is real, why would they take us onto the base and question us like they did? And insisting that we tell people we saw a weather balloon. Does that look like a weather balloon to you?
Because you and two cops had stumbled across, if this is true, probably one of the biggest secrets in the American military.
Wow.
The testing of an advanced prototype aircraft or craft of some
Why would they be dumb enough to buzz the car?
You know, 1989, the F-117A stealth fighter, the B-2 stealth bomber.
This was hovering. The stealth bomber doesn't hover.
No, stealth bomber doesn't hover.
This thing also showed hypersonic, instantaneous hypersonic velocity.
And with that, was there a sonic boom?
No. It was also whisper quiet. There was no noise of any propulsion system at all.
The vast majority of these triangular reports are silent. There have been people directly underneath one of these that look up, and they say, if I didn't look up, I wouldn't have known it was there.
Why would these objects, these craft, be taking an interest in a place like Harold Holt Naval Communications Station?
Well, you know, these craft have shown the ability to disrupt communications. And so if it came to the point where we had to use communications from that facility, they could have disrupted those communications. I think this is simply a message to us humans to deactivate all of our nuclear weapons and basically go another direction. And also to learn how to live with each other in peace.
This is the largest group sighting of a UFO. It's not as if just one person saw it. There were over 200 people saw it.
It's effectively being wiped from history.
Be quiet.